All right, dudes, we're live with another Pangburn Hangout. Today we are talking about privacy rights. Privacy rights. Do you like your privacy, or do you not care? Like if we could give up the majority of our privacy rights, would that really bother you? E- even it even if it allowed us to be able to work with pedophiles by tracking them down or by you know, uh, knowing that criminal activities in general is going to happen if we could detect this. What do you? We got Grim in the room to start off. Grim, what do you think about privacy rights? How do you feel about them?
Uh, think about this a lot just because I see some of the stuff that kind of comes up, in the business realm, we see all sorts of interesting things that kind of come up when it comes to companies that are able to basically, take your data at any point. They're able to have your GPS location. Then you have a government privacy, which is like the NSA, where they basically take all data, including what we're saying right now, and they are not allowed to spy on their citizens. So thank out of the Homeland Security, they are able to bounce it to another server outside the country and then capture all that web traffic coming back in, and that's basically how they're able to grab all this stuff. We can also turn on our cameras. Um, this is quite unnerving, and I think that when it comes to my boundaries of what I want to be private, I would say that at, within the confines of my home, meaning not the public, um, it's none of your business. It just is none of your business. I am all for uh, public cameras and public awareness and what might look to be like a police state. You have cameras in every corner and you're able to see what's happened because I think there also needs to be accountability. I think that people get away with too much shit in the seedy alleyways of life, and I rather those people be brought to justice because cameras have been the best technologies we've had just through like officers wearing body cams and things like that. We have transparency, and that's super important, super critical. When you have it inside of my house, you're spying on me, what I would call a spying. Um, blatantly, fuck you. That's an invasion of privacy.
Right now, obviously, this is because some people will think different about this. So let's get down to why you have this position morally. Something about privacy must be, you know, a pleasurable idea to you.
Um,
As opposed to some people maybe would feel comfort to know that that everything's being filmed and no one can get away with anything. But I think we have a probably more people on the side of wanting to have maximum privacy that they can have while still living in a safe society. But what do you think's tugging at you there? Is it your moral foundation? Is it something you're seeing from the scientific realm?
I what think what is important to me is that I don't know, like what comes to mind is the fact that they're trying to bring Edward Snowden back to the state. Right? And they're like, "Hey, man, Edward to pardon him, right?" And they're trying to get Biden to pardon him and going, "Hey, this guy was really saying some stuff that the American people really weren't really aware of, and because he whistle blew, we were able to kind of put in the proper kind of restrictions. It's still happening, of course, but we're able to be more aware of it and start to take it seriously." Every time you hear him speak, and he's like, "These freaking government is spying on you. They hear every phone call you have." They hear, and I'm just looking at him and I'm like, "Yeah, so is that a problem? I don't see a problem there." But then part of me is like, if there's cameras being turned on in my house and people are watching me without me knowing, people are listening to me on my phone. Like if I mention in front of my phone that, I've running out of underwear, and next thing you know, I'm seeing Google ads for underwear. Like that kind of weird shit.
It's
I don't know how I'm being spied on. It's not a matter of like that you are. I don't know why, and I want to know how, because it's also not appropriate to peeking through a window, but then you've got a little badge, around your neck that just says, "Oh no, I'm with the government. Don't worry about it. Keep doing your thing." Oh, thank God, it's peeping Tom. Whew. He's just with the government. We're okay. Come on, man. Does that make you feel fucking comfortable?
So it's an interesting thing too. When we go through certain scanners at airports, it kind of removes the clothing when you're looking at like the scanner through the screen, and that's why people opt to have the physical pat down over the over going through the visual machine. Because I think now someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they can see the outline of your dick.
Well, now it's a national emergency at that point, apparently.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
like, oh no, someone's crossing the border with a monster in their pants. We need maximum security.
They just pull up, sir. You can't be smuggling snake. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that's funny.
But that's the truth. I don't care. I don't care if I'm going through a screen, someone can see my outline and my dick. I don't care. You're a professional. You're a job. Now, if you want to get off on it and be weird about it, well, then you can if you want. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
I'm not that sensitive, and I'm just at the point where it's like, you know what? That's just unprofessional, and you'll probably be fired for it. Whatever.
Right.
Don't spy on my kids. Like, don't spy on my wife. Spy on me. If I know I'm going through a screening, and I know those things because they were on the news, and they were like, "Hey, these things, they'll see your, kind of like a visual creation by the computer about what you look like, and if they added the code for what your dick looks like too, then I guess so, just in case, make sure you're not packing in more ways than one." And then yeah, I know what I'm getting into, and I can request a pat down. You can't request a pat down the camera that is in your house right now. You can't request a pat down for the NSA turning on your camera on your phone, even when it's dead. Or not when it's dead, but when your phone's turned off. That's that battery life. But even when your phone's turned off, they can still turn the camera on. That kind of stuff is just, to me, what Snowden is saying when it comes to an invasion worth of privacy. Now, that's just government privacy, right? Now we have data being used of people in large swaths, and that's kind of interesting right now. Like what Cambridge Analytics did with Facebook, where they took a bunch of people's data and then they marketed Trump campaigns to target those people to sway the vote. Or speaking of Facebook, what just happened where basically Facebook just had a data breach of 500,000 users. And my wife is changing her passcode. Another family member has already had strange charges because people's credit cards are attached to Facebook. And all of this data is getting out. In fact, there's websites that you can go on right now. I think it's called like, "Is My Data Leaked?" or something like that. And it'll show you popular websites. And it'll show you the data breaches that have happened and how many users. And then it'll show you that your account, your email address is actually being used or has actually been breached, and which email has been breached. And this is all public information. Nobody knows about it. And it's because some fucking idiot decided to hack Pinterest 5 years ago. Nobody talked about it. I got your info. Never even knew. This company doesn't protect your privacy. Doesn't protect it at all. Why'd you give it to them in the first place? Oh, because I wanted to use their app. So I gave up a piece of my info.
Yeah. A lot to unpack there. I'm just sharing,
I told you I've been thinking about it.
Sharing the stream.
Where are you guys at in Canada as far as like what you guys have
I
as
mean,
with the government looking at you guys.
yeah, I would say like, we have traffic cameras. Most businesses have cameras. So pretty normal level of security. A lot of people have cameras in their home now on their properties. But I would say like, that's about it. Probably similar to the United States.
Well, we've got some interesting government programs coming out, but for the most part, we've got people, we're being listened to on a constant basis. Your government listening to your phone calls on a constant basis for keywords and algorithms that might pop up for them to
So
isolate
you're
your conversation and have a professional look at it.
so does this happen in the United States? Are you saying?
Yeah, so right now, if we were on a phone call, now we're to mention some keywords like Biden and terrorism,
Right.
or these certain key phrases. Computer grabs it, isolates it, goes through a few algorithms. And if warranted, given my profile of who I am as a citizen, would have a specialist look into it. Okay. And it's kind of a joke here
So
that
this
everybody
is
has an
real,
FBI friend that nobody knows about.
right. So this is real, not some crazy conspiracy theory.
This has been going on for years
Like, do we
because
have
of
like do we have like proof of this?
Oh yeah, and this is what Julian Assange and Edward Snowden were talking about, and this is what the NSA said that they were putting in after the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act basically did this. So it was, like I said, it was how are you guys going to spy on citizens? That seems illegal. And they figured out a way with Homeland Security and the NSA to literally put all of our data, send it across to trusted servers around the world, typically right off across the Atlantic Ocean or right off the Pacific somewhere, then bounce that information back and capture it. So when I'm calling somebody and I'm talking to them, I'm actually calling a real local server, which then reroutes to a far server, which then comes back, and web traffic too. And like I said, we have CIA or the NSA has algorithms that piece all stuff together and flag that. And that is exactly what Edward Snowden was saying. That, okay, so now they've isolated you. You said some key phrases. I have a specialist looking into it to see if you're a terrorist or somebody who's willing to do harm towards the things you're saying. And then they'll turn on your camera. Then they'll start tracking you. And if it warrants, they'll put a tail on you. If it warrants, then they'll start to monitor you for months at a time and start manipulating with you. Where it comes like your actions being manipulated. Now, if I'm a terrorist now, and I'm looking to get a hold of certain things to do whatever terrorist act I want, this system has stopped terrorists from actually performing the act because they end up working with the local authorities and realizing that they were not sold plastique. They were sold, something fake, some fake concrete or some shit. And, all this stuff. And you're hearing all these stories about like, oh, yeah, that one was stored, that one was stored. And the big problem with Americans right now is what did we give up to have them stop a few terrorist attacks? And that's the debate around, like I said, like Snowden and our government spying on us.
Interesting. Yes, the government can really hear us if you're using an old-fashioned phone that has a plug in the wall with a wire. Then generally the government gets a court order, sends that order to the phone company, and then the phone company taps your line. So they would have to tap it.
That's old school. The Patriot Act changed a lot of that after 9/11. And so this information I'm giving you is not my information. This isn't like my opinion. This is literally from Edward Snowden and what he's talked about how they're doing this. He worked at the NSA.
Right. So if he says it, that doesn't mean it's happening, right? So I'm just trying to find some source that's able to verify this.
Yeah, no worries. So that's my understanding of basically how they're working it. I mean, it's hard swallow as far as like, do we want that kind of system? Uh, do we approve of that system?
Something that was once done.
You then can go to something radical like the Chinese have right now, which is in their heavy populated areas, which is a consistent cameras with facial recognition. So much so that even some apartment like complexes, you can't get in the door without your facial recognition matching up. But they do this. They have huge state-ran programs for facial recognition in China. Basically, catch people, and they punish people for weird stuff there, but different,
Right.
different way of doing things. Yeah, and there was
okay. So they collect some phone records. It looks like I'm seeing. Pursuant to EO 12333, NSA is authorized to collect, process, analyze, produce, and disseminate signals, intelligence, information, and data for foreign intelligence and counterintelligence purposes to support national and departmental missions and to provide signals intelligence support for the conduct of military. Here, I'm going to go to the NSA website here. How are they regulated and who monitors them? Okay. Okay, I think it was. Here, I'll give you, just so you know, I'll give you this link as well.
I can fill dead air with my ramblings all day long, so just let me know.
No worries. I'm just gonna. I'm sending you the link I'm looking at.
Yeah. Anyway,
how can I find out if the government has records of me? Both Freedom and so FIA and the
crazy
Privacy Act.
So, but the other side of it, Pangburn, is really interesting. Is inevitability, and I don't want to sound like Agent Smith here, but how long do we truly have in the age of technology where not only is your privacy just kind of null and void, but things have come along like Neurolink and these data aggregating machines that can almost predict probabilities.
Right.
So you're literally there's nothing to hide. You couldn't hide a thought. You couldn't hide an action if you tried, because simply just due to the fact of just the technology in place. That weighs on me too. Of like, it's just given. Fuck it. Fuck it. I mean, come on, man. How long do you got?
How does it?
I got nothing to hide, so fuck it, right? And I know. I think what supports that rationality is on the back end. We just have innocent until proven guilty. If we stick with that and we go, I don't care, somebody wants to see me in the wrong place, the wrong time, then that's okay. And if somebody wants to accuse me of something, that's okay. It's not a fun place to be in. It pisses off everybody. It disrupts your whole day. It could disrupt your life. You could be put in jail for 30 years until proven innocent. And there's that scary possibility. But hopefully, if somebody is accurate and understanding and humble about the inaccuracy of technology, then we'll be okay. We'll be all right.
Right.
And I think that's also cool. So
cool. Internally, the Office of Inspector General conducts inspections, audits, and investigations to make certain that NSA CSS operates with integrity, efficiently. Okay. So it looks like they can pull records. I'm not sure if they can actually listen. That's what I'm not seeing. I mean, you would think in theory, like through the phone company, there would be a way to do that if they had to. What up, Skeptic?
Oh, just checking in.
Nice.
I'd say hi.
Cool, cool. How are things?
I'm getting by.
Yeah, right on.
Doing okay.
Nice. So, what do you think about just generally about privacy rights? Are you one of these people who are willing to give up more of your privacy to make it safer out there for others? Do you have a limit to that? What's your stance?
Wonderful. I believe it should be left up to the individual.
Right.
Well, let's say, for instance, someone wants to share their genome in the altruistic venture that they may have a specific archaic gene that could help all humanity and share that. That's something that's going to be a real privacy issue in the near future. Everyone's genome and their privacy of it as these get used and modeled and used for scientific purposes.
Right.
I was looking at
Yeah, that
that.
bit that is kind of
That
interesting because if you look at like the Mormons, you basically have a mountain that they've been storing a lot of people's DNA in. And this is where like programs like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, because they're accessing those archives. And a lot of people are having issues with privacy because they're like, hey, you've got like my family member's DNA in there, and I never gave you permission for that. What's because they actually get it through other measures without actually getting anybody's permission.
So, help me out here, but like, why don't I care if they have my DNA? Like, I couldn't give a rat's ass.
um, well, there it has an effect on like if you know that you have a 90% chance of getting early onset dementia, and you're looking at life insurance to protect your survivors or job opportunities. These things have a lot to do with how much opportunity in life you may get in the free market
Oh,
based on your genetic potential.
you mean if someone was to take that and use it in that way?
Correct.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
One thing
Yeah.
they do is
What's
they
that?
do take these. The reason why they do gather that DNA, Pangburn, so let me know how comfortable you feel about this. They take your ancestors' DNA, they pray over that DNA so that they can be converted to Mormonism through the kingdom of God.
Yeah, that doesn't. I mean, that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think that's all woo
Yeah.
woo, but it doesn't bother me.
But it's
Like,
interesting.
yeah. So and sure, yeah. If there is an agency that has the time to look at my genetic predispositions through my genome, and then all of a sudden, places I apply for to go work or whatever example we want to use, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't accept people with this kind of genome." Like that doesn't happen, and it's not really a. It's I mean, again, it's one of these conspiratorial things. Like, if it was happening, sure, it may work against you, but it's like then go apply somewhere else, and then the conspiracy theorists might say, "Oh, well, they've gotten to everyone, man." It's like, okay, then we're living in this strange uh, reality that doesn't seem to have anything to do with what we're living in now.
Uh, Granted, that is the way the field is now. However, um, looking ahead, in order not to be reactionary and overreach, which is what most people do, they're not thinking ahead and they react and overreach and then impose unnecessary regulations, being thoughtful and considering these things now before they become ubiquitous throughout society
Mm.
is the way to think about it and start having these ethical discussions.
Well, I think we have, we might not have a law yet based on discriminating based on your genetic predisposition, like based on the reading of your genome, and maybe that needs to be an upgrade to legislation. But that seems like the fix there. As far as I can tell, Grim, what I found is that uh, it's true your guys' government security agencies like NSA can also have access to devices through inbuilt backdoors. This means that these security agencies can tune into your phone calls, read your messages, capture pictures of you, stream videos of
Mhm.
you, read your emails, steal your files at any moment they please. So if they get the proper go ahead, then they can do that, or they can be doing that.
Right? And that go ahead has been automated. It's not like somebody like goes to a judge and then they go, "Hey, can you draft a subpoena?" and it's on paper. This is all completely automated. If they want it, they'll get it.
Sure. Yeah, if they
For shits and giggles.
that's true. If they want it, they get it. But I think there is a. I was reading some things in the NSA that if there is an overstep, like an unreasonable breach of
Mhm.
your, you have legal precedent to sue.
Yeah, but they're gonna do things in such automated ways that that's almost impossible. And then if I'm gonna sue my government, right, for defamation or illegal ways for them to grab my information, like good luck. That's a long, arduous road full of a lot of money. They have automated systems now. They're using technology on a scale that keeps them in the confines of the law, makes it almost impossible to be illegal, right? And that's where technology is kind of headed in the first place when it comes to legalities and things like that. Is it can't be illegal what they're doing because all everything's all automated, including the subpoenas.
so Kevin, I want to get your take. Welcome, by the way.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, hey.
Um,
So
I did.
yeah, I just wanted to ask you. So, how much do you care about your privacy, and how much would you be willing to give up in order to make society, uh, you know, potentially more safe by having more checks and balances out there? Like China, for instance, China's got, a camera on every street corner, right? They have, the advanced facial recognition system. They kind of know where people are generally at all the time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I did miss a good bit of the conversation here, but I I generally agreed with what you were saying earlier, Travis, about making it easier for people to be open. I think we're moving in the right direction as far as that goes with things people are doing online via YouTube and blogs and stuff. And really sharing a lot more about ourselves. I think that is beneficial for us as a society. But I do draw a bit of a line when you talk about government intervention. I have kind of mixed feelings on that one. I think there are times when surveillance can be useful for public safety, but I think there are also times when it is certainly an overreach.
Right. So what would some of those overreaches look like to you?
Um, well, as far as when you talk about using facial recognition on, like on every street corner, um, it seems like you might. It, I want to say if there's something relevant that's happened, then yeah, I mean you could see keeping record of those videos, but I wonder how far that extends to just them recording your locations at all time. And we already have Google doing this for us voluntarily, and so I don't know. I I do think, when you have like red light cameras or things like that, they can be useful when accidents or crimes do occur. But at what point is the government going to be monitoring us uh, based on more trivial aspects of our lives? And in what way would that information be used?
Right.
I, I don't know, and I think it would be less necessary if people were just more honest about their activities in general. There's this mentality of certain people who say just don't talk to the police. Personally, I usually have pretty good encounters with the police, and I'm generally always able to be fairly honest with them, even if I've broken the law. And usually they give me more leniency for being honest. So,
White privilege.
Is that
yeah,
a is that a weird is that a weird thing that honesty plays into that? I suppose the law abiding citizen aspect is it's against the law to lie, right? Those things can be used against you.
Yes, in
well, I mean, I
America,
don't
it
know about
is
the
illegal to lie to the police.
Right.
On the
I,
core of the
I don't
law.
think there's anything that actually says that in our U.S. Statutes. It's not actually illegal to lie to the police. It's just that if they catch you lying, the judge may be more inclined to offer stiffer penalties for being
Well,
dishonest.
we have a different rule. It's called concealment. So if you're hiding anything that is pertinent to uh, the facts, then it's called concealment, and you can be charged.
Interesting.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I dropped a poll question 10 minutes ago. Would you give up privacy for better public security? 13% saying yes, 87% saying no.
Yeah, see, I'm like I said, I'm all for more cameras and monitoring and as much as possible in the public arena. In fact, did you know there was a I don't know, there always is, but the CIA can create anything, right? Basically the CIA says if you've seen it on Star Trek or if you ever thought about it, we've tried it or we've put it down on paper. There are so many files through ideas, and one of these things was they were able to get a camera and a microphone so small that they could put it on a piece of pollen. We'll say that again. They were able to put a camera and a microphone on a piece of pollen. This camera is not high resolution. It's not the type of camera you think about. It's very basic.
That's awesome.
If you release trillions of these, right, and they can make a 3D image mapping of real time what is happening. If they so they'd be on everything. They'd be on your clothes. They'd be on your bed sheets. They'd be in the air. They're just everywhere. You cannot see it as much as you cannot see pollen. And they can make a 3D image of the whole United States given enough of these, just spread around over time. And you can see real time what's happening all over. Creepy is that?
Interesting.
It's kind of creepy.
Well,
Yeah. So
in a way, if you think about that, I mean, in public spaces, though, we're already subject. We don't even know when other people are recording us at this point. Sometimes you might end up in the background of somebody's YouTube video
Yeah.
and not even know about it.
Right.
or the ATM camera across the street or the security camera up at the light pole. Like, that's what I don't care about. If I'm in public, I am just aware that I could be videotaped at any given time.
Right.
You know, it's a weird because things happen in the shadows.
It's a weird thing for me, but I kind of live my life as though I'm under surveillance. Like there's nothing about my life that if it was to come out in the public, and maybe that just has to do with me being a public figure, but probably, but I wouldn't. There's not a thing I would change or adjust that I do in my life. Like I wouldn't adjust anything if I all of a sudden knew that I had cameras on me. And I don't know. I guess I just don't. I don't see that as a bad thing.
Well, I guess that's where a lot of the difference, and like maybe you might not feel ashamed or stigmatized for your sexual preference, but there are a lot of
Right.
people who feel ashamed or stigmatized for that, and so that might be one area of privacy where
Of course. Yeah.
you really don't want to be intruded upon.
Right. And my thing is I wonder if when we're just thinking about this, as far as like clarifying the mind, well, do we think that it's better to live in a world where people are, so stoically individualistic that, they would have that same attitude, or is this or is this insecurity something to be cherished and to be preserved?
I don't know. That's interesting because some people would call that an aspect of purity. I've been hearing a lot about purity culture these days, and their personal beliefs about those topics.
Right.
But it seems to paint other people with different preferences in a negative light. So then
Mm.
you have kind of a battle of ideas there.
Right.
Mm, I think people are willing to give up everything they got except for thought. I think you can push people all the way up to in the bedroom, in their kid's bath. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can push people because we're all humans and we can all accept each other and we're all made of flesh and we all kind of do the same thing. But when it comes to thought, hard one. And even if you talk in religious terms, right? Because God judges you even off your thoughts. Don't covet, right? Um, but think about that. Like, would you be okay with technology that's able to read your mind, see what you're thinking of real time, knowing that it could be very embarrassing because you feel like you should be able to think about anything just to think about it. It's not like I'm going to act on the weird things I think about.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about them because
Yeah.
it's who I am.
So my answer would be, yes, bring that technology on. I have no problem with it.
Yeah,
Sounds kind of like the whole Minority Report thing, like
Yeah.
and
Look, I would have a problem if we started prosecuting people based on their thoughts, of course.
right.
Like it should be a new avenue in order to help someone when we see the neural pathways leading to something catastrophic.
But at
well,
the
who,
same time, we
Hmm.
all definitely have many thoughts that we never act upon. So it's so
Sure.
hard to tell.
Yeah, sure. So you would have to, you would have to calibrate that in a way that's helpful. You couldn't just, every let's say, well, I call them in my second book an immoral pleasure drift, something that is immoral based on from the perspective of well-being, that you don't act on, but it's just the way it emerges is just like, oh, okay, that was weird that I thought that of wanting to punch that person or whatever, but my skepticism did away with it and threw it in the trash. So you'd
I think
have to,
there's
yeah.
well, are you familiar with Neurolink?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to be an early adopter of that, and that's something that has been on my mind, wondering what kind of security apparatus is going to be in place and who's going to be in control of it before I accept such a invasive implant like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm fine being a subject in that. Uh, like I think Neuralink, I think it might be, the next step in being able to, we all have, well, not all, anyone who suffers from any kind of brain disorder like depression, if there was a way to mitigate that or turn it down or turn it up or turn it off, I think this is something that should be invited. Of course, we have to do our due diligence to see, how much or what the side effects of this are going to be, because it seems like there will be side effects.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of it too. I think it's amazing. I think we should be able to mentally interact with our technology, not be using our hands as much. And there's a lot of physical issues when it comes to us using our hands. In fact, I even suffer from it. I'm starting to, in my older 30s, and my hands and my arms are starting to just hurt from as much activity I do on my keyboard and my, I got touch pads and stuff. So it is hard in that realm. I'm a huge proponent of it. There is, though, like I said, I think there's a difference between. I think there needs to be some privacy, especially when it comes to your thought. Like I'm not okay with that kind of stuff. I'm okay with saying yes. Let's use the technology to understand thoughts and experiment with those and run trials and run studies, but don't do that to me. I don't want my thoughts out there. It's not that my thoughts are, crazy or inappropriate, but they're mine.
Right.
It's me. I get to be private and alone with my own thoughts, and I get to deal with what I want to deal with, knowing that nobody else is listening. It's special to me.
Oh, okay. Let's explore that a little bit. Why are they special to you?
Special to me because it feels like having a meeting with yourself and determining your goals and you want to be, knowing that it's just a moment of privacy between you and yourself in meditation, not in a way that can be taken out of context or taken in any which way. If somebody really did want to look at my thoughts, even if I'm not in public, like I got a weird brain and I got a bunch of weird thoughts,
right?
And so there's a way that I like to project myself, knowing that I've got all weird thoughts too, but it's part of who I am that helps me project myself. And I don't want somebody getting into the mechanics. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I am now part of the collective. I don't have that individualism anymore.
You know how you could really sell this neurolink if you could actually affect the sex drive in a way that it eradicated erectile dysfunction. There's going to be a fucking lineup around the block, like men who are getting on.
$1 billion idea.
Fuck yeah.
Sounds like what you're speaking of is what I was talking about, kind of like the fear of criticism or rejection for your thoughts, which was kind of what I was pointing towards before about making societal norms about, a lot of us have wide-ranging thoughts that might not be, culturally acceptable. They might not be something that we would act upon, but the fact that we're afraid to talk about them or admit that we have them is part of the problem.
Maybe you said something about mitigating depression.
Right.
I think depression is an essential human tempering emotion that people endure and work their way out of, developing coping skills without a crutch that makes them stronger.
Sorry,
kills them.
Go ahead, Grim.
Kills them. I mean, depression is. I think depression is healthy at all. Depression is a very unhealthy don't think it's. I think there's a reason for it. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's like unnecessary, or unwarranted. I just think that avoiding it, trying to find ways to not be depressed, important. Recognizing that if you're entering that realm, recognizing where it's like, um, is argumentally more important than being depressed.
You're cutting in and out.
Sorry. It's weird. I was going to say recognizing it, recognizing that there is depression, right? Recognizing that it's there and to avoid it, I think is healthier than actually being depressed.
Well, what you're saying is, by recognizing it, that means you must have developed a skill of coping with it in order to recognize it and work your way out of it without a synthetic crutch.
I mean, I have, yes, but I would say that people that are headed there should be aware of it so that they avoid it rather than experience it and say, well, you should experience depression. It'll make you a better person.
I can speak to my own personal experience. Um, I've been suicidal and had chronic depression and started taking um, serotonin uptake inhibitors, and they work, but they flatten out the human experience to where that even though there's bits of depression and crying and wondering whether or not life is worth living, it also destroys the elevated happy moments too, to where everything grays out and is monotone. And I would rather have those downs in order so that I don't lose the elevated highs. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Well, it does. It does.
Welcome, Claire. I want to get your perspective on this. So, when it comes to privacy rights, would you be willing to give up privacy to make things more safe out there, or do you highly value privacy and you don't want to give any of it up?
I highly value privacy, and it's not just because like I have things to hide. It's more of should we give the government that power or whomever that power to do it? Because I mean, you could say, well, it's to protect the population, but then also, what if the government has agendas or is trying to find people who are opposed of the government? Like, would they? Is there a possibility for them to abuse that power to be able to look into our private lives and things like that? It's more of a, I don't really want to give that government that much power over our lives more than, oh, I have things to hide. But that's kind of that's basically my take as a libertarian.
Right. What do you guys think of what Claire said?
I mean, it sounded like kind of the way I was a little bit. Where I mean, like I said, I'm all for out in the streets. I'm all for out in the public square. That's great. I'm just really uncomfortable. Some dude at the NSA being able to turn on my camera at home, like just watch my family. It's just weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. And there seems to be some kind of unreasonable amount of oversight that would be necessary in order for this, like for what you're talking about. If you were talking about like a camera in every home, you would have to have the guy watching the camera and the guy watching that guy, and so on and so forth, and in order for it to be truly foolproof.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite insane. If you look at China, right? You see a really heavily police state when it comes to cameras. Like, it's crazy. Now they have these algorithms and the data. But Travis, do you have any issues with large gatherings of data where you can start swaying the population through simple Pavlov or social tricks?
Like,
Does that not concern you?
What do you mean by that? Like, so having like what the NSA has in the United States?
Kind of. So imagine you have so much data about how people move and operate that you could change through the computer technology you have that you could change the way people socially and socially act and socially react to each other or the environment because of the data that you have, and you can of just watching for so long, right?
Okay, yeah. So
And
you
you have all this fashion. I mean, tons of stuff.
So any form
because
of,
you just have so much data about how the human reacts and moves in its environment.
Yeah. So any form of so information that's supposed to be used for security, keeping people secure and safe, and once it starts being used for manipulation, you obviously need to have legislation in place that keeps that from happening.
But we're already experiencing technology being used on us, manipulating us, and there's really not much regulation around it. And I gave you the example of like Cambridge Analytica gathering all the Facebook users and then basically targeting them with Trump ads to sway the election, which Cambridge Analytica ended up going to prison for.
Right. So there's legislation in place that we can call upon if we see bad actors using this technology in an unlawful way.
But you also have to keep in mind that, like, what if it's also bad actors that are writing these legislations to allow this power to increase and become more and more violating to the population.
Yeah. So when you're picking your leadership, you know the voters should be paying attention to things like this and what we are doing, if it's a problem, what we are doing to circumvent it or to mitigate the amount of these occurrences where these bad actors get their hands on things, or there are people acting to make it worse. The best you can do is have checks and balances in place so that the technology, it's like the whole story of like we see this in superhero movies all the time, super technology falling into the wrong hands. Well, the best you can do is set up laws and police those laws so that the citizens are protected, and that's what everyone has to rely on in democracies, regardless of the issue you're looking at.
I've got
weird when that
democracy listening later. But, thanks y'all for the good talk.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, it's odd though because the fact that that
you're cutting out there.
Manipulated to put the dude in charge. Well, I'm stuttering a little bit too, but it's we got manipulated to put the dude in charge in the first place, and that's kind of hard because it's like, but what if we get manipulated to change the whole system to where it's just it's not prosecuted?
Skepticism
people work outside the law.
Yeah, skepticism is the answer to all of this. If someone wants to claim that I am being manipulated by something, they can demonstrate that claim. If they say, oh, you're being manipulated by certain advertising that you're being hit with and these things, it's like, no, I'm not. I'm analyzing that, and my skepticism's analyzing it as it comes in. So as far as I can tell, skepticism is the answer in order to give people the tools in order to overcome being tricked by these marketing parlor tricks. And we need to create a society of unignorance as opposed to trying having people focus on things like group identity. And whatever the group says we're going to do or think about something, I'm going to think the same thing. We need systems to combat that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously any technology could be used for bad as it could be used for good. There's just these consequences the consequences, unfortunately, as technology advances, gets worse. And what I mean by that is there's a simple Venn diagram that shows basically technology growing with basically population growing, and of that population, the population having access to that technology growing, and then in the middle is basically this 1% of 1% are psychopaths that are hell bent on destroying the world. And it's kind of scary because if the technology gets more accessible and more accessible and more accessible, and those people can use that technology for bad things like printing a 3D virus that can't be stopped. 3D printing a virus that can't be stopped, for an example. And the hard bit about it is that living in an era where technology is advancing so fast, our government is trying to catch up to it. The people in our Congress don't know how Twitter works. They're tweeting all the time, and they're also trying to regulate it, right? And they're saying Twitter is too much power, Twitter is too much power. It's kind of scary when it's like, okay, well, technology is making these leaps and bounds. The consequences are getting larger and larger. What are we doing to combat that?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Legislation has to keep the checks and balances for democracies on technology, and that's the way the system works. So but one thing we haven't invested enough in is by promoting skepticism in individuals so that they know what to do with information and they can make better decisions while voting, and also have more fruitful conversations that aren't just based on emotional knee-jerk reactions. So I think once we overcome that, and of course with that, I mean, can you imagine if we had if you guys in the United States had a political electorate that was full of people who had solid foundations in skepticism? Like, what could be done? Like, it's baffling.
Dude, we can't even get an atheist in office.
Well, you can't even get a fucking teacher who understands how to think properly. It's madness. What up, Scott?
Oh. Claire's a teacher.
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm saying that generally.
Generally, and I don't mean to go off it with that, it surprises people whenever I bring it up in conversations that most, not just on a federal level, but also a statehood level, there are not a lot of teachers that are in these government positions to talk about education. I mean, Betty DeVos is not an educator. I think this is the first. I mean, Biden's elect is actually an educator, but I mean, that on the state level, there's tons of heads of educators that are not actually educators. Arkansas, for example, Mr. Key is an architect or an engineer, but he's in charge of education for Arkansas, and it's just like, what? But to go with you were saying also about Twitter, I don't know if you saw, but Supreme Justice Clarence Thomas actually made a statement about social media and their speech. Basically, he says that with the changing of times, we really have to look at how our doctrines apply to these highly concentrated platforms, and if they are allowed to silence speech, being such humongous platforms. And it's just kind of like, we're coming to this free speech but also private property blurred line.
So Claire, I want to jump on that.
Okay.
When does a powerful private entity cross over into becoming dubbed like a knight would be dubbed? You have now been dubbed a knight of the Queen. When do we start dubbing Twitters and Facebooks and YouTubes of the world as no longer just private entities, but a public good?
Well, okay, I have the whole quote here. Basically, it says today's digital platforms provide avenues historically unprecedented amounts of speech, including speech by government actors. Also unprecedented, however, is control of so much speech in the hands of few private parties. Thomas wrote, "We will soon have no choice but to address how our legal doctrines apply to highly concentrated, privately owned information infrastructures such as digital platforms."
Right.
And this is he was addressing this in the context of the fact that President Trump is banned. Is President Trump banned from using these platforms? Anything that has to do with him, like interviews with him,
Right.
any kind of form of speech from him, is completely blocked and not allowed on Facebook or Twitter.
Which is nuts.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I want to jump to Scott. How's it going, brother?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
Good. Hey, so when it comes to privacy rights, are you willing to give up, as much privacy as you need to ensure public safety, or is your privacy, do you cherish that to be quite high on your list of living priorities?
Yeah, it's definitely quite high. I do think there is a line. I don't know. I haven't thought about that too much before, so I don't know what I could say is my exact line. But yeah, I mean, definitely you want to err on the side of privacy. Sure.
Right. And why do you think you like privacy?
Uh, it's just sort of natural, I mean, people want to be able to do what they want to do without, somebody sticking their nose in it, just like in a same way like a small town is, like everybody knows everybody else's
Oh yeah.
business in a small town, and it's like nobody likes that. That's why people in small towns leave when they get the chance, unless they're into it.
Unless you get knocked up at 17 and yeah, so that's interesting. But why do you think we feel, that we want to cherish our privacy like it's something to be cherished? Like, I guess I'm trying to get to the fundamental, obviously I can make my pleasure argument saying that it's a pleasurable pursuit because we kind of view it as our own artistry, what emerges out of our mind, and we feel that it's special and that we ought to be able to decide who we share that with. But all of a sudden, let's say we create this technology that it's like this, like an MRI brain scan thing where the government can press it and it will do an update of all of the brains in your city to be able to look at all the brain states and the emergent thoughts and, everything that's going on. That doesn't freak me out or worry me or add any disgust factor, but for most people it does.
I wouldn't say disgust. I think it's more along the lines of you can, if somebody can access, information about sending to it does seem like a violation.
Right. So yes, and I know some people look at that as a violation. It's like, I did not consent for you to read my thoughts. Now, I don't feel that way about it. I don't feel like it's a violation. And one example I used was, I feel like I kind of live, and maybe this has something to do with me being a public figure, but I feel like I live under surveillance. I live as though I am under surveillance, if that makes any sense. And I know that most people don't live that way.
Yeah.
and I've never, it's been hard for me to understand and come to, I understand what it is. Like I said, like it's a pleasurable pursuit for some, but I'm trying to understand why this idea of privacy isn't a pleasurable pursuit for me. And I know some people hold it so high, like my right to privacy, is so high. And I'm just like, wow, I've never even put that like on my top 10.
So,
so
what about like something along of like privacy?
So you're breaking, you're really quiet. It's doing that waiver thing again.
Is it doing it again?
I
was saying, what if it's along the lines of it's, private conversations between you and your girlfriend, and somebody got access to that?
Right. So I would want to know what it was being used for, but it's not an automatic thing where I would feel like here's the thing. If it's being used for something that is antithetical to my well-being, then I'm going to have a moral problem with it. Yeah. But if that's not the case, like if it's being used for good, like for a security reason or for something, then so be it. Or let's just say let's say one day a sex tape of Travis Pangburn is released without my consent. I can't see myself really caring about that. I think that's atypical. I think most people would care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I think that people being so attracted to privacy and like your thought.
Oh, I lost you there, Claire.
Hello?
Hi. Hey, yeah, we got you now.
Okay. I was saying that, a lot of people see their privacy as kind of like their space or like their bubble, if that makes sense, like little space. But not everybody feels like they feels that attachment to having that private space or that bubble. Some people, I think it kind of goes also like how some people are just super introverted and some people like it just kind of depends on the person. Whereas like you feel like, okay, so what? They're in my space. Like, I don't care. Like, the more the merrier. And then someone else might like just completely oppose anybody being in their space. It's kind of like,
right.
When I was a teenager, I don't know about everybody else, but I absolutely could not stand it when someone came into my room. Not that I had anything to hide in my room or like, it was just like my room was my space. It's my area to go and be me and nobody can come in and, so I think it kind of just has to go back with like, it's my space. It's something that I should be able to have that the government can't touch, because if the government is able to invade and violate that privacy, what else do you have that they can't touch? They already touch your income, now they have your privacy, you follow their laws. Like, what do you have that's yours if not, your personal space?
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Keith. I know you're in a hurry. What do you got?
Hey, this whole privacy thing, I used to like kind of mock the idea of like, oh, people are going to look at my porn search. Like, who cares? Go ahead and look at it. Yeah. But then you look at the other aspect of like, Cambridge Analytica, like that was brought up earlier.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, my data on a singular scale does nothing, but it's like a grain of sand in this massive, desert of information that they're moving around and like, so then you see this massive manipulation. And then I'm like, okay, I have a huge problem with that.
Well, yeah.
For this reason, I would love to have privacy. But then I listened to a Sam Harris podcast where he was talking about pedophilia. And we're seeing like a huge rise in people looking for this illegal, nasty stuff on the internet. And there seems to be a correlation with people having access to these rabbit holes it being combined with being depressed and not connected with society and having access to these rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And they have this privacy, and we're seeing like all this increase of really nasty stuff that is probably also leading to human trafficking and just, the ugliest things in society that you could ever imagine.
Yeah. And, it's one of the strong arguments, I think, that if we want to help people before they harm others, people who have these, genetic predispositions like pedophilia and psychopathy, and, some psychopaths and pedophiles can live their whole lives without acting on this. These will just be strange emergent properties of their mind that they notice that they're different than other people. But how can we create algorithms and maybe use those to invade people's security to some degree, in order to identify, like if let's just say it, if we know that someone is using a device that's connected to the internet to try and find child pornography, I think it would be for the greater good of humanity that we caught that right off the get-go, right from the beginning, so we could administer help to that person before they can cause any harm, right? And
Yeah,
of course,
I
that's not going to
100%
be
agree.
that's not going to be a perfect system, because perhaps some of these potential offenders, or just offenders in general, are not going to go, the public internet route. But you would have to believe that we're going to be able to interject and save some and help some before victims are created.
Yeah, I feel like we could make a lot of really good headway on knocking down a lot of these stigmas that are, putting things in the dark.
Well,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
it would,
for that reason,
yeah.
I swapped back to being like, go ahead, have at all my data. If
Right.
you want to search through all of my stuff and you're going to use it for the sake of catching these people, like I don't care about my privacy on that front, as long as they're being ethical.
Well, and Keith, here's the thing. Most people's argument against all this is when the people do harm with the information they collect. And I don't think I've ever come across anyone that's okay with people collecting our information or genetic information or anything and doing something that's going to be antithetical to the well-being of humanity. I mean, if that person exists, show me them. But I mean, is it safe to say that would be a 0.0001% of the population that might have some weird idea that, yeah, it's fine. I'm so free market and capitalist that they can fucking fuck with people if they want. I mean, it's part of the, the open market. But yeah, if there's measurable harm there, you're going to have legislation. And look, most of the Western world is taking care of this legislation. It's like when Claire was saying, it's like you have to be able to suss out bad actors, and you have to have enough balance and checks in place to make sure that you don't have a conglomerate of bad actors, fucking with people. And I think that's important.
So I actually agree that, there does need to be probably legislation that, or algorithms that do catch these people that could potentially or are now harming others. And I, with my, because I am a libertarian, and the only I can justify by saying that, the government's job, one of the biggest jobs it has, is to protect us, right? Is to pass laws and legislation and orders that protect us. And I genuinely think that creating an algorithm that specifically targets people that harm others, not just pedophiles, but also, I mean, there's a lot going on, like on the dark web,
Right.
And to be able to target and find these people that are harming, the population, I think would be very beneficial. But I think that there does need to be very tricky legislation, because the problem I can see is passing legislations that allow the government to invade privacy to look for these people, but also adding in other clauses inside of the legislation. I mean, we have things that are trying to be passed. Like, for example, the last two stimulus bills were over, like, what, 600, 900 pages, filled with things that just didn't make sense at all.
Right.
And so, on one hand, it's like, yes, we do need to vote these people in. Yes, we do need to write legislation that helps us find these awful people. But at the same time, who's there to check these legislations and make sure that secret agendas are not also being
Right.
pursued
And
when we pass this legislation?
Right. Yeah. I agree. And I just thought of a hypothetical, like, hypothetically, if, information was purchased or leaked to, let's say, a religious organization, and the information they were specifically interested in is when anytime a woman is looking at abortion clinics near her, where they would then be able to call them or harass them on social media or whatever, just to be like, no, come to God, we'll be able to save you from making this mistake. It's like, if they were able to get access to that information, which that would be, that would be definitely what I could see as a breach or a misuse of that information.
Yeah. Yeah.
But of course, like, terrorist activities, like these shooters and whatnot, when even if you see that people are accessing, the Thor search engine to access the dark web all the time, it's like, I know it's an encrypted thing, but is there some way that we can at least? And I know that these intelligence agencies have ways of doing this, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about is already being done now, and it's legislated. But it's like, how do we get better and provide better security so that we can take a bite out of the amount of victims we have? I mean, especially you guys, all of you in the United States. It's like, up in Canada, like, crime is just such a minuscule thing up here, but I know in other parts of the world it's a different story.
My other issue, it's small, with this, to catch criminals like pedophiles, is I think that if we did pass legislation, and I know we already do have some, but I think if we pass legislation that is like, they're gonna, maybe it's that they flag, websites that sell, or they if you search in certain keywords, automatically you're flagged to be under review, your data and privacy. But how long until these people figure out, how to bypass or what to do? Or would it take such a turn where people who, have these pedophilic, wants, and use the internet to get rid of their, wants, if that's taken away from them, and they're like, if they search it, they're going to get found, are they going to move on to actually physically harming a child?
Right. Yeah.
So it's just like, how long do we have if we did this? How long until they try to bypass or move on from the internet?
This is why this has to a dual diagnostic approach, or dealing with this in many different facets, many different ways than just taking that thing out, because of exactly what you just outlined. So, a lot of this is, starting to treat these, encouraging mental disorders that are gauged to cause harm, encourage those things out of the closet into the public in some way that is at least going to allow us to document and keep tabs, allow people reasonable amounts of freedom, but allow us to keep tabs on what people are doing who suffer from these disorders. And, and I think that's a very different, nuanced view than the idea that gets thrown around social media of like, kill the pedophile or hang the pedophile where they stand type thing. Scott, what would be the biggest breach of, we'll get Bruce first. Hey, how's it going there?
He is a goodie.
Bruce, how important is privacy to you?
I would say it's important enough that I close the curtains when I get changed.
Right. Now, the follow-up to this is, how much of your privacy would you be willing to give up to make society safer for you and your family?
Well, I don't know.
That's kind of what that's the question I'm floating around.
I would say probably, probably a lot if it were. But see, unfortunately, the antithesis of that is true.
You're worried about bad actors?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's say in a vacuum where we had enough checks and balances in place to essentially weed out almost every bad actor who would be using this information or your private information for bad. Obviously in that utopian view, it sounds like you would be okay with giving up privacy.
Yeah, I'd say the need for privacy would no longer be there. The point would be moot.
Right. Is there anything within you that you would say is like, feels like you have this natural feeling of loving the idea of privacy? Like craving it?
Yeah, I would say that. Well, in my worldview, I would say that's my sinful nature. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Copy that.
In the same way that I try and hide from God, which is futile, I try and hide from man. I would say that's part of my nature.
Interesting.
Because, it's just sort of like having something to hide is specific. You know what I mean?
Now, in your worldview...
Well, hang on a second. I got someone calling me.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get back to you. Scott, what do you think about what Bruce just said? If you're there.
I don't think Scott's there. I don't think he's there.
Smoking a doob, man.
It is. Claire, would you ever give up privacy of your mind?
No.
Any reason?
No. I think if we did weed out bad actors, and the legislation for this was very specific and straightforward and cannot be interpreted or, whatever in any other way. Like that's because that's also an issue, is, interpretation of legislation. But if we did weed out bad actors and the legislation was very forward, I would, allow maybe my search history to be, used, things like that. But I don't think under any circumstance I would be okay with violation of my mind. Just, and that kind of goes back to the whole MySpace type of, feel. I didn't let my parents into my room. I'm sure as hell not going to let the government into my mind. Come on now.
Okay, here's a question. What with regards to privacy of the mind, what are some things, and you can be as general or specific as you want, but what are the specific things that you would absolutely never want to give anyone access to?
My subconscious.
Okay.
Things that you think that you would never act on. Because the thing is like, you go through your day and, you know, you come across people that you're just like, man, I just want to smack that person.
Yeah.
Or, you know, your innermost thoughts that you would never share with anybody or act on, and things like that. Like I'm a teacher, and there are some times when a student just does something and I'm in my head like, man, I just wish I could just, you know, not like hurt them or anything, but like just yell at them and you know,
Yeah.
set them straight, but I can't because I'm a teacher.
Right.
But, you know, I just think that that's just such a violation. I mean, especially your thoughts.
Now, what would worry you about that? Would it be like you being judged?
No, I think it's just
It's just very exposing. Like,
it's just very exposing.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have any bad thoughts, I feel like that's just very much a violation of personal, you know, what do you have
autonomy?
left? That's
Yeah.
What do you
That's
have?
what I said.
If somebody is
Yeah.
able to come in and view your thoughts, what do you have left that's just yours that nobody has seen?
Right.
It feels like you're joining the collective, and there's no individual left. It feels weird.
Grim,
just thinking about it.
Grim, you can be as specific or non-specific as you want, but what are some of the emergences that come into your mind, let's say on a daily basis, that you would definitely want to put an X over? You wouldn't want them to see that category of your mind.
I think of really terrible things in order to think about them and mash my value and morality the situation that's happening, right? So like I'll think about my kids dying and shit. Like I think about terrible things because I want to mentally prepare myself if I was ever in that situation. Oh, how would I ever act like that? So that's where my ADHD brain kind of goes, and I don't want people thinking that. As well as maybe like in public, you know, and you're like, you know, maybe that guy does have a really nice ass, but you're like, but not like that, man, but not like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So
but
you
I'm
don't
kind of
want
jelly.
the world. You don't. But isn't there something just funny about having your mind, like the fucked up thoughts you're having, exposed to the world, like that inner dialogue, the comedic inner dialogue?
Yeah.
I mean,
When I say so, not when somebody else says so.
Right.
I don't think it'd be funny to me.
What about hey, how's it going, Vance? Vance from Vance Refrigeration. Bob Vance.
How's it going, eh?
How's it going there, Vance?
Vance Refrigeration.
Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
Bob Vance, Vance. Does he have to say that every time?
He does, every single time. That's funny.
That's funny.
Vance hates us. Vance won't talk to us. He hates us.
He cares about his privacy.
Yeah, he might not have a mic. Maybe he's typing furiously somewhere.
He cares about his privacy. Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Bruce? What are the dark corners of your mind? Like, even if it's just categorically, what that you would be worried of having exposed? Would it be? Let me take a stab at you for a second. Would it be like the moments where anger is just fuming in your mind?
Yeah, definitely some of that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think about everything all the time to an extent that is largely a problem. So like it even manifests in reality, not even just in my mind. So to have my mind or what I would say my thoughts rather than my mind available to anyone else, I'd be institutionalized.
Right.
I would be, unless of course it's normal and they just say not to, but like there's all sorts of crazy things that go on when I'm, thinking about a person or a thing or anything. I mean, there's suicidal thoughts that are not even suicidal. Like there's thoughts are just like,
It's like,
I
what
could
would it
die.
be like?
not even what would it be like, or more like it's a possibility. It's kind of like you know, Peterson kind of talks about that, like he talks about understanding of what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Well, the only way you could do that is go through the motions in your brain as to how you would get pushed to these scenarios, to these places. And that's going to be, for me, that's all the time. Or not often enough that it would be a problem. I mean, geez. You know, and then there's all other sorts of things, like, just imagine, like, as any man can honestly say,
right,
when they see a woman or or whatever they're attracted to, and maybe gay men are the same, but I'm just saying, like, it's pretty much like all the time for most men. Like, you know what I mean? It would be, you know, pretty insane, the amount of stuff that goes through people's minds. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a whole slew of things that would be uncomfortable to be exposed if your thoughts were on display, you know.
Yeah, interesting.
But anger's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Scott? What do you got going on in that dirty mind of yours? I think
he's still
Scott's
there.
AFK. I think he's away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Scotty don't.
Scotty don't.
What about you, Pangburn?
Is there anything in your dirty mind?
Oh man, the world should not be exposed to the mind of the Pang.
I take a bath every time I'm done checking it out.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying earlier, it's one of those weird things where because of the way I understand what's going on in the mind, it's like we're not in control of anything. Thoughts are happening to us. We're not triggering anything. We don't, as far as I can tell, free will hasn't been demonstrated, and we're just part of this, deterministic causal chain. And the thoughts are part of that. I would not be embarrassed, ashamed, or want to guard anything from my mind, and I wouldn't be. I feel like I would be able to, if someone wanted to say like, "Oh wow, I saw this popped up in your mind. You're fucked, man." I would just be like, "Yeah, I got a lot of weird shit going on in my mind," and I think about a lot of artistic concepts, but then I also think about, those weird moments when, and I call them in my second book, immoral pleasure drifts, where immoral pleasure drifts pop into our mind, and then we're just like, wow, and our morality and skepticism smacks it away and throws it in the trash bin. But I think we all have those. Can some of them be embarrassing? See, I don't really get embarrassed. I usually just laugh at myself. Like if in an embarrassing, like usually in those moments that people are like, "Oh yeah, this is so embarrassing." And maybe that's a topic we need to talk about, actually, embarrassment. But I tend to just love the opportunity to laugh at myself as opposed to having any negative feeling of embarrassment. But maybe that's just the way I experience it. So I don't know. It's like, would I be worried of the people finding out, of the government knowing what's going on in my mind? I don't think so.
Would you ever be embarrassed?
Well, that's the thing. I'm trying to think of if I've ever even, when I was young, I would say definitely I experienced embarrassment. No question. But at this stage of my life, I don't think there's anything that could embarrass me, to be honest.
Well, I think the whole reason why people would be worried about something like the government knowing or embarrassment is about the inevitable consequence that would come along with such a thing. If the consequences aren't there, then the worry, shame, and embarrassment aren't there. So the only way that somebody would be willing for government or otherwise to have access to their thoughts and emotions would be if the consequences weren't there. And in that, if that's the case, then those senses of embarrassment or those thoughts or what would be considered to be taboo would not be taboo because the consequences wouldn't be there.
Right.
So it's sort of, that's the only reason these things are off limits, is because there's consequences.
Yeah. So for me, I could definitely say if there's no consequences, no problem. But I think there are still people, even if there wasn't consequences, they still have this feeling like, they might be embarrassed by like their sexual proclivities, or their what else, or their like their bathroom habits, or what are some other things that people might be, just some weird idiosyncrasies that they would just die if they woke up the next day and they saw on the front page of the local paper that specific idiosyncrasy that you are literally like, I would rather die than have that out in the public.
It's almost like if I was like walking behind somebody like in the store, I could just imagine me like leaping onto their neck and sucking their blood out, just like in a weird fashion.
Well, here,
and if that thought got out, they'd be like, "What the fuck are you thinking?" You're like, "I'm just being weird."
I mean,
sorry.
you already.
Go ahead, Claire.
Nothing.
Well, I was gonna say something. Like, okay, most people can relate to masturbation, and I'm not talking about like masturbation when you're with a partner. I'm talking about your own individual private time masturbation. Now, if a video was leaked of you masturbating when you thought you were alone, it's like most people aren't going to be embarrassed by that. But right now, I'm just like, I'm on the brink of laughing at myself because of how hilarious I think that would be if like a video of me was released masturbating. But I know a lot of people
wouldn't find that embarrassing.
I wouldn't find that embarrassing.
I would find that embarrassing.
See, this is the different. This is the weirdness of where when I talk to people about embarrassment, it's like, yeah, like Claire, you're saying you would croak, right?
Like, I would like have to move to like Saudi Arabia and like have a new name and
Saudi Arabia, nice choice.
Where do they not have internet? Can we find out where they don't have internet?
Iran, right in the heart of
West
Iran.
Australia.
I can just marry and stay at home and never
There's
show my
not
face
going
ever.
to many.
And even if I do have to go
There
out,
is
cover my
no
face up.
kind of masturbation happening.
There will be nothing happening there in the
But
masturbation.
but my thing is with the whole masturbation thing, like, why would the government need a video of me masturbating?
Blackmail?
Like, what?
Blackmail, yeah, that's the thing here. Oh my
That's
God,
the only reason.
this is a black. What's that show called?
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. Yeah, that's that Black Mirror episode when we don't know that it's the kid who was, whacking off to child porn or whatever the end of that story was. But yeah, that Claire, it's like, what would you give to not have that video released of you? It's like you might give everything, right?
$20.
25 bucks. Nah, just release it.
It really depends on.
Saudi Arabia is sounding
There's
really
you know what
nice.
happens
Yeah.
in today? You know what happens today, though? You know what's interesting? That this is monetizable today.
Oh yeah.
And in the US at least.
Yeah.
And even possibly because of the way like this sort of thing has been going, assuming you don't have other prude morals or something, you could take that and turn it into a massive payday. Around like creating a brand of yourself and just embracing it and saying, "Hey, I'm okay with this.
Right.
Anyone else that's interested in this, we can turn this into a whole." It's sort of like it's sort of that whole thing is like there's no such thing as bad press, because there's enough people somewhere that will be interested in what you're doing that you can turn it into a positive exchange. And then as long as you have a thick skin and you can say like, I don't care if people don't like it. There are people that do like it. And those are my fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I could definitely see that happening.
Well, that happens a lot. Like, and in the celebrity realm, like, it's like young celebrities, actors, early 20s, sending nudes to each other, dating and all that. And then this shit gets leaked and people like, what's her name? The girl that was in the Hunger Games series. She had all of her photos dumped out and leaked into the world. And she just said, I suppose we just live in an era where this can happen. So whatever.
Or in the
Was
case
that Jennifer
of
Lawrence?
like
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, or in the case of somebody like Paris Hilton, where it's like you end up becoming like a multimillionaire.
Well, she made it. She just decided she wanted to make the films.
Or Kim Kardashian, just because she got leaked out, she ended up making a $1 billion empire.
It's like, can you like? Does anyone really believe she wasn't behind leaking that? Like, it's like, hey, we can make $1 billion.
The camera and shit.
Yeah, but it's the whole the whole sex thing. I think there is something different about. I think most adults, like if a video of them having sex got released, but a video of you when you thought you were alone masturbating. It's like that's a pretty personal thing, and I think that kind of gets to where people will be kind of separated onto two sides. Where I'm just like, I would just laugh my ass off, and if my friends bugged me about it, it would just be the funniest thing ever. It wouldn't bother me. But
funniest thing would be like if your guy friends bothered you about it, be like, why are you watching this, bro?
It's like, how many times did you watch it, bud?
Yeah, how many times did you see this? Brute.
When did you watch it? 12.
What's wrong with you?
Why were you checking out my Facebook profile pic at 12 last night?
Yeah. Why do you have a ruler up your
in the in the office? Ryan in the office says, or someone says, oh yeah, they're talking about Angela's new gay husband to be, and then Ryan, and then they're like, Ryan's like, oh yeah, I knew he was gay. He's like, why? He's like, he liked my profile pic on Facebook at 1 a.m. I thought that was pretty clever.
It is clever.
Canadian funny.
Kind of true. Kind of true though. There's serious questions. If someone likes a Facebook, like anyone that likes someone's profile pic of the same sex, and it's not like your brother or your family, there's something wrong there.
So I like your profile pic.
Gay.
No.
Women are different.
See,
Women
I'm not. I disagree.
Okay, then don't say it. Then say men. Don't.
No, say men. That's something wrong. I'm saying you're just gay.
I like your profile pic. I like the beard thing rocking. It's always good. The hair wave. I mean, come on, man. I'm a little bit jealous. It looks good.
It's fine for you to say, but actually doing the action, that has a lot of subtext. Actually pressing the like button.
It's not. No, I think if you're a guy and you like your friend's profile picture, it's not homosexual. It's homosexual. It's all okay. It's all good.
Homosexual. I've never heard that.
That's what they call it, down low, bro.
That sounds like
no, Bruce. I have a question.
Oh yeah, I'm mostly kidding.
I'm shooting a shot in the dark. Okay, I'm gonna assume that none of your friends ever liked your profile picture, and you're just holding some resentment for that, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. I'm going over right now to like. I'm gonna put a heart. You know what? I'm not just gonna like it. I'm gonna put a heart on Bruce's profile pic. I'm going there right now.
I'm pretty sure it's me and my family though. So like, no, it's not. It's the same picture I have here. So yeah, fine.
I mean that beard. I mean, how could you not like that profile?
I'm pretty sure I have. Right. Bruce probably thinks I'm coming on to him, which might be true, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm mostly kidding, but I think it's a funny bit.
Yeah, no, that is a good bit. Well, I think I know Family
to the likes.
Yeah, I know Family Guy is definitely touched on that for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's more like because it takes an effort, like because everybody sees your picture, right, and everybody sees all of your posts and everything. Liking it has an intention of some sort.
But so
otherwise it wouldn't be
like
what if it's not and like I know like me and my friends, like I like my friends' profile pictures and they like mine because we're hyping each other up, you know. It's a love, friend love, you know.
That's right.
And
it's homosexual.
Do that too. It's homosexual.
Yeah, I'm more of a. If I like your, I like to be honest with what I like and on these social media. So if someone posts a photo where they literally look like shit, I'm not going to like it, and I might say something like, "I've seen better" as like a joke.
I think it actually, it definitely depends on what the photo is. So if it's like a photo that clearly looks like you're trying to be a part of a dating site, or like you're a single guy, and you're like, you don't like that of a friend. You just don't like your friends. Like you don't do that. But it was just like a picture of him like playing sports, right? He's playing basketball. He's got a photo of it, like action shot, and you
Right.
like it. That's different. That's different.
Good in
But
those
it's like
shorts, man.
Yeah, you're looking
someone's
good.
headshot, and they're clearly trying to like. They're a single dude. It's a headshot. You know that they're trying to like present themselves for for women. It's like if you like that, it's a dude, and you're not their uncle or their dad. There's something going on.
So are you saying that they're gay if they like their friend's picture?
I don't know.
I think you're putting too much connotation on liking a picture.
I think
I'm saying it's possible.
I want if I don't have
3 a.m.
Yeah, that's
and
why
you're
the
liking
office.
a picture that's like from 40 weeks ago.
That's what the office is talking about.
Yeah, I'm not making this up. The office is saying it.
Listen, that's a whole other. I'm like, if I ever did that, that'd be a Saudi Arabia move for me. That's embarrassing.
Saudi Arabia. She's got her bags packed, people.
Like, why'd you like this? It's 2 a.m.
Yeah,
and then, well, how would you know that? Can you see that Can you see the activity that someone liked it if you're not awake and see it happen? I don't remember.
Yeah,
can you see the time?
And even if they unlike it, because on just personal experience, on Instagram, it will notify you that someone liked it. Like you have your push notifications on, and even if they unlike it, it will still have not on the app but on your phone, like where it notifies you. It will still say that. And so it's even more suspicious, right? If like you see that someone liked something from a long time ago and you go look and their like isn't there anymore, then you know they were stalking. This is
that like super late. This is that woman side of social media.
This is the woman side of like FBI side of women.
That is a brutal place to be. I couldn't imagine being that concerned about like the like ratio, who liked it, and if they no longer liked it anymore, and what that means.
Right.
That is difficult.
Tell you can. I don't know how. I've never used them, but I know that there are apps advertised that show you not just like who liked your picture, but who visits your profile.
Ooh,
that's not possible. That's not possible to find out unless that person is reporting.
Really?
Yeah, the only reason to get that is public celebrity, because Facebook or Instagram or Twitter would not reveal that. That's not.
If you have public figure, well, also like
figure, they would.
LinkedIn does that too. So
LinkedIn has that feature
show,
but that feature doesn't exist on other social media.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a whole other deal.
LinkedIn, I have that feature actually enabled as a professional profile, and I see all sorts of people stalking me, all sorts of old coworkers and like random people I met at a bar at a conference one day.
Job hunters.
Job hunters for like recruiters. Headhunters. Yeah, but like once I'll see like someone that like I worked with like 10 years ago, and they'll like check on my profile to wonder what I'm doing.
Weird is that?
Huh.
Send me a message.
I think it's. Oh, the headhunters are the worst.
I'm right there.
They're like.
I'm right. It's okay.
Well, what was that?
Graham is going in and out.
Yeah, that was bad. It got like all crackly. But yeah, the headhunters are the worst. They're like the It's like going to the mall with those pushy Israeli hand cream people. Like
Israeli. They're all Israeli. You're gonna be.
It's here's one thing. I'll admit, are we broadcasting live?
We are.
Oh, yeah.
You can. Hey, we're on the Pangburn offensive now. You can say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Okay. Well, then I believe that homosexual means I'm not gay. He sucked my dick, right?
Yeah.
No. If there is some dick sucking, if there is some guy sucking other guy's dick, that's homosexual.
Right.
But I didn't do it.
What if you're doing it?
I'm not gay.
Acceptable under homosexual is maybe docking. That's about it.
Docking.
What is that?
Wait, I got some. I got a quote.
What is docking?
No, Bruce.
What is docking?
Google it. Bruce, do a Google image.
I'm not Googling that shit.
I'm not
Googling that.
Okay, hold on. I got this.
I need verbal understanding. I'm not putting that down on paper anywhere.
This isn't a real thing. This isn't a real thing.
Bruce, listen. It's like, okay, so it's like you and your friend are wearing hoodies, okay? You and your friend are wearing hoodies.
There's alcohol involved, I'm sure.
Your head inside his hoodie with his
I get
head.
it. I get it. This is not a real
I don't
thing.
get it. Wait. So one.
Okay, Grim.
Sorry.
So you and your
Yeah.
friend are wearing hoodies. Okay. And you put your head inside of his hoodie where his head is at the same time. But
Dude, it's not. This is an analogy. That's an actual.
Okay, so now we're like cheek to cheek.
yeah, except with your penis.
With foreskin is the joke. That's what the thing is.
Yeah, you need to.
Oh God.
You need to still be intact.
Is that
for
not a
this.
thing? I don't know. I don't have a penis. I don't know what's.
Most men in the
Oh,
West
Doc-
are circumcised. So this.
Claire,
doesn't
you're getting
occur.
too much information from your classroom. You need to.
Yeah, this is
They
really
took their
weird. It sounds
phone
like
today,
something.
and they have Discord. And also, is it? Did I breach privacy by looking at my kids' notifications?
Yes.
Oh, actually, let's get into that.
Oh no! Oh
Checking
no!
in on
Like your
kids.
children, or your children, or
Check.
your students.
Well,
Okay. So I didn't like specifically go and like unlock his phone and look, right? I took the phone, and when I picked it up, like they were all there, like in my
these are
face.
noobs that don't know how
And
to
it's
set
like,
privacy settings.
and one of the notifications was Discord, and I was like, oh no, what did they find?
They're all gamers. They're gamers.
But I will say this: I do sometimes. I will go look at like their email, their school email, but
okay.
I'm authorized to do that because
Right.
they do email each other inappropriate things a lot,
Uh,
and also sometimes it's super funny stuff. Like it's just fun. So I mean, like, and
Purely
I
for
think
entertainment.
since it's on public, it's not public. It's on like the school's computer on the school's email. Like I
Okay.
do have.
Now
Well,
what
actually, I think
Claire's
all
now
public
what
emails
Claire's
are-
engaging in, like for the hilarity of it, would you guys be okay if the NSA was doing that with you?
Can I?
They already are.
Can I look into your email, Grim? Can I look into your email?
Fuck no. What?
No way, dude. Identity theft's a real thing.
Identity theft
Yes,
affects
I
millions of people
totally
every year,
have
Jim.
these
Claire's
for you.
Claire's got the perfect
funny,
like
Jim.
persona to thieve someone's email. 100%. She
Like,
sounds
wait,
so.
just
She
like-
sounds
just
so
I'm gonna
sweet.
call
Sweet.
somebody. You've won a cruise. All I need is your email and password.
Oh man, we used
Sweet.
to.
Yeah,
looking at my email.
Speaking of that, is that
I'll pop you in the
Sri
face.
Jan guy dead or what? Where has he
John?
been?
What is Sri John? I don't know. He's young, right? Maybe he got a job.
Sri John, he's this Indian guy who comes on here and he'll just pop in with a new name. Sometimes he'll just create a new name that like it's like Pangburn something, but then he'll just be like,
What's up, CC?
please enter your credit card number. It's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a young guy from Bombay, and it's
Right.
He's interesting.
He's a funny guy. What up?
Yeah.
What up, Canadian Catholic?
How are you?
Good.
What are you doing over here? Aren't you busy, like, creating these massive Discord servers for tons of people to come join? What are you doing over here?
I've heard about you.
He came for fresh meat. I want to ask
Fresh
For your daughter, Chuck.
I want to ask Canadian Catholic, how do you feel about privacy? Is it very high on your list of things you wish to maintain in your life?
I never think about it.
You never think about it?
No.
And would you care if what would you think of handing over all of your privacy in order to make society maximally safe?
Well, I'm not sure. I have to think about it.
You're really hard to hear, by the way. It sounds like your head's in a
Oh, sorry.
garbage can or
I have to
something.
think about it.
Oh,
I
okay.
am not sure.
Yeah. Feel free to mute, and then I'll love to hear your answer.
Can you
I
hear me?
sort of heard him. He said he'd have to think about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, you cannot hear me?
Oh, that's better. That's way better.
That's better. That's
Yeah, there
better.
you go. Now you're better. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to think about it. I really
Cool.
Something else I just like thought of is I think there's a difference between the way that Americans view their privacy and the government being allowed to, and then connect. Because I'm just like listening to you two, and then like Americans, and I think that has to do with like a lot of Canadians don't see their government as this abusive, that's a strong word, but, this very strong negative. Most Canadians view their government either as like a neutral or a positive. I mean, you might not agree with everything your government does, but you don't see the government like a lot of Americans see our government.
Right.
I mean,
that's
a lot of Americans, when
100%
we
true.
see government, we see corruption, we see, people pushing agendas, whereas in Canada, it's a different relationship. It's a different view.
Yeah.
And so, like, you wouldn't have a problem with your government going into you because you don't have that back of your thought worry of they're going to use it against me. Whereas in America, it's almost like they purposely pass laws or do things to entrap us somehow. If that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I would say in general, we are pretty like, when we think about our government, pretty tang and laid back in Canada about it. I think the most, like, people do get angry about government decisions and whatnot, but for the most part, people who are kind of upset with the government would be like, it's the government, nothing's going to change. Like, that's kind of the attitude. But you will get the odd, group of people pissed off about, a certain pipeline being shut down or project being approved. But that's, it's nothing like the United States in that regard.
Claire, are you from the South? Are you from the Southeast, like Virginia, Carolinas, or are you like from Texas?
Who is that for, Claire?
I'm from
Yeah.
I'm from like the most southern state you can think of. Not
Arkansas or Alabama?
More southern than Arkansas.
Alabama.
Mexico.
Arriba!
No. More southern. More south.
It's Alabama or Mississippi.
Both.
All right. I was trying to see if my accent radar was decent. It's not that good, but I knew it wasn't Texas. I would be very surprised.
And which I've not been very good at, like, masking it. Like, I usually don't. I usually mask it when I'm having discussions because I'm already a woman, so that's like one negative of being unintelligent on Discord, and then also with like the whole Southern thing. And then if I have my camera on and they see that I'm blonde, like, it's just the trifecta of dumb. So I tend to like try to mask it, but I'll be honest, I've had like 2 strawberries, and so I'm like a little.
Oh, all right, yeah.
The
cameras.
The cameras aren't on podcast here. It's just the voice.
Just the audio, just the voice. Yeah, it's not on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Go on camera. I don't know why I'm on Pangburn. You should put this on.
My accent when I discuss.
I'm going to actually switch YouTube.
Isn't it really a shame? Isn't it a shame that the Southern accent in the United States is seen as idiot? It's like, it's a real problem.
I understand.
Well, what's the I mean, Bruce, you're you're right next to Boston, where it's like people are, it's that whole thing is like, you're a hothead, you're Irish,
hothead and Irish, but they're not morons like bumbling, like low IQ idiots like the South is
Southern
considered.
Cajun.
Like the South is considered like the butt of the joke of the low IQ can barely write or read.
Right.
Like, that's the stereotype.
And that has a lot of precedent though, like, because the South is generally collectively more poor than the rest of the United States. They're also less educated. We have some of the lowest reading stats in the United States. Like, there is merit to say.
But they're not
the South
stupid.
is not as no, and I think, but like, to be fair, I also judge